In the news tonight, the first day of the holy month of Ramadan starts on Sunday after scholars announced they did not cite the new moon of the lunar month. Hundreds of Arab Israelis clashed with Israeli riot police during a protest against Israel's policy of administrative detention, while in Gaza an Israeli airstrike kills 2 Palestinians. And EU leaders nominate Jean-Claude Juncker for European Commission President over fierce objections from the British Prime Minister. Good evening and welcome to a new edition of the news. And Kul Aam wa Antum Bikhair. The fasting month of Ramadan starts on Sunday, according to a statement by Chief Islamic Justice Ahmed Hlayel. The statement said scholars and officials who gathered this evening using telescopes did not cite the new moon of the lunar month. The start of Ramadan begins when the new moon is sighted, according to Islamic tradition from the early Islamic era. Fasting will begin on Sunday also in Palestine, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Qatar, Bahrain, Morocco, Yemen, Lebanon, and Egypt. And with the advent of the holy month, His Majesty and leaders of Arab states exchanged greetings on this occasion. Prime Minister Abdullah Mansour inaugurated a newly built mosque in Salhoub town in Ain al-Basha district. The mosque, the Nadmiya Badran Mosque, is named after the late mother of MPs Khalil and Khamis Atiyah. The 3-story mosque was built at their expense at a cost of 300,000 Jordan dinars. The Friday sermon delivered by Minister of Awqaf and Islamic Affairs Hayal Dawood focused on the importance and virtues of the holy month of Ramadan. The minister called on Muslims to seize the opportunity of the holy month by doing good deeds. Hundreds of Arab Israelis clashed with Israeli riot police during a protest in the northern town of al-Fahim. An Israeli police spokesman said protesters tried to block a main road and had to be removed from the area. Demonstrators said they were protesting against Israel's policy of administrative detention, under which Palestinians suspected of security offenses are jailed without trial. Hundreds of Palestinian prisoners have gone on a hunger strike since April, with scores hospitalized. Israel has at least 5,400 Palestinians in jails. And in Gaza, an Israeli airstrike killed 2 Palestinians and critically wounded another. The Israeli military carried out the attack on a car traveling along a coastal road near a beachside refugee camp in Gaza. Israeli officials said the men targeted members of the Popular Resistance Committees had been involved in firing at Israel in recent weeks and were planning serious attacks against Israeli residents. And in an earlier attack, 4 Palestinians were wounded by Israeli fire near the southern part of the Israel-Gaza border. Among them is an 11-year-old boy who was seriously injured. The army said its troops near the border fence had been targeted by an explosive device and tanks and responded with fire towards lookout posts used to guide the attack against the forces. U.S. Special Mideast Envoy Martin Indyk resigned today, 2 months after the collapse of Palestinian-Israeli peace talks. Officials said Indyk will continue to serve as an external advisor to the Obama administration on the peace process and will return to his post as special envoy if talks resume. Indyk was appointed as envoy last July when U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry announced peace talks would resume with the goal of reaching a settlement within 9 months. Reports say that in early May, Indyk was considering resigning following the blow-up of talks between the Palestinians and Israelis. The White House and Kerry asked Indyk to wait and see how events unfold in the region, but after the establishment of the Palestinian Unity Government, it became clear that peace talks will not be resuming anytime soon, and Indyk decided to resign. It is unclear whether Indyk, who will replace him, but his deputy Frank Lowenstein will assume the envoy position on an interim basis. In his bid to press regional leaders to tackle the threat from Islamist militants, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry arrived in Saudi Arabia for talks with its leaders on the ongoing crisis in Iraq and Syria. In a brief meeting at Jeddah airport before discussions with the Saudi king, Kerry held talks with Syrian opposition leader Ahmad Jarba. Kerry said the moderate opposition in Syria has the ability to be a very important player in pushing back against ISIL's presence. The Obama administration yesterday asked for $500 million from Congress to train and equip vetted members of Syria's opposition. Iraqi Prime Minister Noor al-Maliki said that his political bloc will attend the first session of the new elected parliament scheduled to be held on July 1st, warning that security violations may occur. His remarks came during a meeting in Baghdad with military commanders to discuss the severe security conditions in the country. Iraqis are due to form a new government after an election in April in which Maliki's bloc won the most seats in parliament but would still require allies to secure a majority. Meanwhile, the president of Iraq's autonomous Kurdish region blamed Maliki's wrong policies for the turn of events and joined calls for him to quit. British Foreign Secretary William Hague urged Iraq's political leaders to form a new inclusive government that represents all components of the Iraqi people. Speaking during a joint news conference with Kurdish President Masoud Barzani and Salah ad-Din, Hague said that it is up to the Iraqi people to choose their leader. He added that the government must be representative of all Iraqis, including Sunnis, Shiites and Kurds. For his part, Barzani made clear that the Kurdish people still wanted a referendum on their future, and until it is implemented, Kurdish troops will defend their territory in the face of Sunni militants.
I hope everyone, Shia, Sunni and Kurds, will join in making that happen, which will make it easier for the world to respond with assistance. And I welcome yesterday's announcement that the Iraqi Parliament will convene on the 1st of July, and I encourage all parties to attend that for the election of a new speaker and president and for the process of a new broad-based government to be taken forward in line with the Constitution. We believe as friends of this country and region that this is urgent and vital work.
Meanwhile, the UN High Commissioner for Refugees said that up to 10,000 people in northern Iraq from the predominantly Christian communities of Qaraqosh have fled their homes since Wednesday following violence close to their community. During a news briefing in Geneva, the UN chief spokeswoman said thousands in northern Iraq have fled because they feared being targeted because of their religion. Another source of concern for the Office for International Migration is the difficulty for UN agencies first to track the displaced and then to reach them on the ground.
Vraiment très, très difficile.
The situation is really difficult. The IOM not only asks for the creation of humanitarian corridors, but also asks that schools, mosques, where displaced people have found shelter, as well as hospitals, be declared neutral and sure places in order to be able to access these populations and to provide assistance. Several mosques have been under fire and Mosul's two most important hospitals have been completely destroyed.
In Brussels, European Union leaders nominated former Prime Minister of Luxembourg Jean-Claude Juncker for European Commission President. Juncker won by an overwhelming majority over the fierce objections of British Prime Minister David Cameron, who called it a sad day for Europe. He was outvoted 26-2, with only Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán joining British Prime Minister David Cameron in voting no. Britain has argued that Juncker is an old-fashioned federalist who lacks the will and skills to reform the EU. Fellow leaders immediately sought to assuage Cameron by promising to address London's concerns about the EU's future and to review the process for choosing future European Commission presidents. Juncker will now go before the European Parliament for a confirmation vote on July 16, where he's likely to win a majority of centre-right and centre-left lawmakers.
So voted to nominate Jean-Claude Juncker as the next President of the European Commission. Britain and Hungary opposed. We must accept the result, and Britain will now work with the Commission President, always do, to secure our national interest. For the first time, all my 27 fellow heads of government have agreed explicitly that they need to address Britain's concerns about the EU. It is in the agreed conclusions the European Council issues today. Europe has to change to succeed. And if you are deadly serious that you want change, as I am, then you don't back down when a vote goes against you. People need leaders who are willing to fight for change, whatever the obstacles, whatever the frustrations, whatever the cost in the short term.
After months of upheaval, Ukraine signed a broad political and trade accord with the European Union, making a historic shift away from Russia and closer to the West. Ukraine President Petro Poroshenko signed the agreement in Brussels. Former Ukraine President Viktor Yanukovych turned his back on signing the EU agreement last November in favor of closer ties with Moscow, prompting months of street protests that eventually led to his fleeing the country. Georgia and Moldova signed similar deals, holding out the prospect of deep economic integration and unfettered access to the EU's 500 million citizens. The EU also provides technical help and funds to help countries adapt to its regulations and allow businesses to bid for lucrative EU public works contracts. The EU says Ukraine is still free to trade with Russia. However, by agreeing to the EU accord, Ukraine can no longer join Russia's customs union because members Belarus and Kazakhstan are not members of the World Trade Organization. The self-proclaimed People's Republic of Donetsk and Luhansk promised to observe a ceasefire until June 30th. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin said the violence in eastern Ukraine had forced tens of thousands of Ukrainians to seek refuge abroad, including in Russia. We have more in this report.
With hours remaining on a Ukrainian ceasefire with separatist troops, Russian President Vladimir Putin weighed in.
Most important is securing a long-term ceasefire as a necessary condition for substantive talks between the authorities in Kiev and representatives of the southeastern regions.
Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko is under pressure from the West to extend the existing ceasefire. But Ukrainian forces worry that it'll give separatists enough time to regroup. They also point to several breaches of the ceasefire, including the downing of a helicopter on Tuesday. Putin on Friday also sought to reframe the dialogue, which he says misses the mark.
The unconstitutional revolution in Kiev attempts to force on the Ukrainian people an artificial choice between Europe and Russia, bringing the society to a split, to a painful internal confrontation.
The deadline for the ceasefire is Friday at 7 p.m. Greenwich Meridian time.
Batman is celebrating his 75th birthday. And in honor of the occasion, a new exhibit featuring a large collection of Batman props and memorabilia from all 7 films opened on the lot of Warner Brothers in Burbank, California. The exhibit features a wide range of vehicles, props and costumes used throughout the film franchise's history. The opening was attended by actor Danny DeVito, who played the villain in The Penguin and Batman Returns. Algerians lit off fireworks and cheered wildly as the country's national team made it to the last 16 of the World Cup for the first time. On a momentous night for the North Africans, who were the last team through to the knockout round, Islam Selmani rose to the occasion and nodded home in the 60th minute to equalize against Russia. With Belgium beating South Korea to advance as Group H leaders, Algeria finished runner-ups and faced Germany for a place in the quarterfinals. And that match will be one with a backstory and the potential for revenge, as Germany and Austria conspired in a non-aggression pact at the 1982 World Cup to ensure they went through at Algeria's expense. Uruguay's Luis Suarez arrived to Montevideo, Uruguay early today after being hit with the longest ban imposed at a World Cup. FIFA yesterday banned Suarez from all football-related activities for 4 months and also ruled he could not play in Uruguay's next 9 competitive games, immediately ending his involvement in the World Cup in Brazil. During a Group D match between Uruguay and Italy, Suarez bit Italian defender Giorgio Chiellini. And this wasn't the first time, as he's bitten Chelsea's Branislav Ivanovic and PSV Eindhoven Otman Bakal. The ban means Suarez is unlikely to appear in non-friendly matches for the country until 2016. Suarez arrived on a private plane and disembarked at a closed hangar, where he was whisked away by a waiting van. However, fans gathered at the airport in a show of support. Not only did FIFA suspend Suarez for 4 months, but an Adidas ad in Rio de Janeiro featuring the embroiled trumper Suarez has been swapped out for Brazil's defender Dani Alves. Adidas said it would not use Suarez in any further World Cup marketing. The German sports company, however, has stopped short of ending its sponsorship deal with the now controversial striker. And finally, fair tonight in most regions with northwesterly moderate winds. As for tomorrow, it will be hot as temperatures rise to become 6 to 7 degrees above seasonal average. Winds will be northwesterly moderate, picking up in the afternoon and blowing dust in the Badia. In the Gulf of Aqaba, temperatures will soar to 42 degrees Celsius with winds northerly moderate and the seas calm. Here now is our temperatures forecast for tonight and tomorrow. And to close, here's a reminder of the day's top stories. The first day of the holy month of Ramadan starts on Sunday after scholars announced they did not sight the new moon of the lunar month. Hundreds of Arab Israelis clashed with Israeli riot police during a protest against Israel's policy of administrative detention, while in Gaza an Israeli airstrike kills 2 Palestinians. And EU leaders nominate Jean-Claude Juncker for European Commission President over fierce objections from the British Prime Minister. And with this, we come to the end of this edition of the news. I'm Alia Tuqan. Thank you for joining us. Have a good night, and I'll see you tomorrow.